You ever have one of those days where you just know something ridiculous is about to happen? Well, mine started with the sight of flashing red and blue lights pulling up in front of my house, because apparently my pickup truck had triggered a full-scale neighborhood crisis. Now, let me rewind for a second. I live in a quiet suburban neighborhood, the kind of place where people mow their lawns at 7 a.m. sharp and compete over who has the cleanest driveway. It's run by a homeowners association, the dreaded HOA, and if you've ever dealt with one, you know exactly what kind of headaches come with it. But in our HOA, there's one queen bee who rules it all. Karen. Karen has a mission in life, ensuring everyone follows her version of the rules. If your grass is half an inch too long, expect a nasty note in your mailbox. If your trash bins stay out for more than 12 minutes past collection time, brace yourself for an email that reads like a legal summons. And God forbid your truck, yes, a perfectly normal, registered, and insured truck gets parked on the street. To her, that's basically a federal crime. So what did I do wrong? I had my truck parked in front of my own house overnight. That's it. No loud music, no blocking driveways, no oil leaks, just parked. But to Karen, that was the ultimate HOA violation. The next morning, instead of coming over like a reasonable person, Karen called the cops. Not just to report my truck, but to demand it be removed immediately. And that's why I walked outside to find 2 officers stepping out of their cruiser, trying very hard not to laugh. I asked them, "Gentlemen, what seems to be the emergency?" Before they could answer, Karen stormed over in her robe, clutching her little HOA rule book like it was the Constitution. She pointed at my truck and yelled, "That vehicle is illegal! It's an eyesore! It doesn't belong here!" The officers exchanged glances. One of them cracked a smile. The other said, "Ma'am, this is clearly not a police matter." But Karen wasn't backing down. She crossed her arms, chin up, and declared, "Then I want highway patrol here. This is their jurisdiction." That's when the sergeant, who had just walked up from the second car, grinned at me, tipped his hat, and said the words I'll never forget. "Highway patrol, huh? Well, lucky for you, ma'am. That's exactly who we are." And that was only the beginning. Now, when the sergeant said those words, "That's exactly who we are," you could practically hear the air leave Karen's lungs. For a split second, her eyes went wide, and then she tried to recover with this smug little smirk, like she had somehow summoned the cavalry to deal with me. She jabbed a finger toward my truck again. "Well then, you know the law. That monstrosity is not allowed on residential streets. Impound it immediately." The sergeant raised an eyebrow and gave her the kind of look you'd give a kid, insisting 2 + 2 = 5. "Ma'am, your neighbor's truck is registered, insured, and parked legally in front of his own house. That's not a crime. That's just parking." You could see Karen's face twitching, trying to compute what she just heard. But the HOA rules clearly state that commercial vehicles are prohibited. I had to stifle a laugh. My truck? Commercial? Sure, it was a pickup, but it didn't have a company logo, ladder rack, or even so much as a magnet stuck on the side. It was cleaner than half the SUVs in the neighborhood. The sergeant leaned casually against his cruiser. "Ma'am, HOA rules are not state law. They're civil agreements between residents. The police don't enforce HOA regulations." Boom! He dropped the hammer. But of course, Karen wasn't done. "So you're just going to let him get away with it? This ruins our neighborhood's appearance. You people are supposed to protect us." The officer next to him chuckled. "Ma'am, we're here to protect you from crimes, not trucks." I couldn't resist anymore. "Hey, Sergeant, should I put some flashing lights on the roof? Maybe then Karen can say it's an emergency vehicle." The sergeant smirked and shot back. "If you do, she'll probably try to write you a ticket herself." Now the other neighbors, who had been peeking from behind their curtains, started trickling outside, curious about the commotion. A couple even pulled out their phones, recording the scene. Karen noticed and immediately puffed up, declaring, "I have every right to call law enforcement. This man has been disrespecting community standards for months. That was news to me. I'd lived there less than 6 weeks. The sergeant shook his head. Ma'am, I'm advising you right. Now, stop wasting emergency resources on personal grievances. This could be considered misuse of police services. Her jaw dropped like she'd just been slapped with a legal dictionary. For once, Karen had no comeback. The sergeant then turned to me, still grinning. You're good, sir. Just keep parking legally and don't let the neighborhood drama get to you. If only it ended there. But Karen wasn't the type to lick her wounds quietly. You'd think after being embarrassed in front of the neighbors and called out by highway patrol, Karen would retreat for a while. Nope. If anything, that little showdown only fueled her fire. The very next morning, I stepped outside to grab the paper. And guess what was taped to my truck's windshield? A bright neon pink flyer with giant block letters screaming, "Illegal vehicle, remove immediately." At the bottom, it was signed, HOA Enforcement, Chairwoman Karen. I had to laugh. She'd basically appointed herself sheriff of the neighborhood. My dog barked at the flyer like even he knew it was nonsense. I crumpled it up and tossed it in the recycling bin. But I should have known better. Karen wasn't done. That afternoon, while I was washing the truck in my driveway, she marched over in her oversized sun hat and sunglasses like she was about to interrogate a suspect. "Enjoy your truck while you can," she snapped. "Because I've already scheduled a board meeting to have it banned. From this community altogether." I leaned on the hood and grinned. "Oh yeah? You going to get the highway patrol to back you up again?" Her face flushed red. "You think this is funny? You're lowering property values. People don't move here to live next to farm equipment." Now, that part actually made me laugh out loud. Farm equipment? Karen, it's a 444 pickup, not a combine harvester. But here's the kicker. Karen wasn't just bluffing. A few days later, an official-looking letter from the HOA showed up in my mailbox. It stated that non-passenger vehicles were prohibited in driveways or streets overnight. Violation fines, $250 a day. I read it twice, then pulled up the actual HOA bylaws online. And guess what? The rule was written specifically about box trucks, trailers, and RVs. Nowhere did it mention pickup trucks. Karen had tried to twist the wording to target me. That's when I decided, if Karen wanted a war, I'd give her one. But I wasn't going to fight with yelling matches or bogus flyers. No, I had a better plan. To turn her own pettiness against her. And as fate would have it, an opportunity fell right into my lap. Because while Karen was busy making my life miserable, her teenage daughter had developed a strange, new hobby, sneaking into my pasture to take selfies with my cows. Yep, you heard that right. And that's when the idea hit me. If Karen wanted to embarrass me in front of the neighborhood, maybe it was time I embarrassed her, with a little help from my manure loader. So picture this. It's a sunny Saturday afternoon, and I notice Karen's daughter out by the fence line again, phone in hand, snapping away like she's doing a Vogue spread with my cows. The cows didn't mind. They're hams for the camera, but I knew Karen would definitely mind if those photos turned into a family embarrassment. That's when I fired up my secret weapon, the manure loader. Now, for those who don't know, it's basically a front-end tractor bucket, designed for scooping and hauling manure. Loud, clunky, impossible to miss. And let's just say, when that engine roared to life, every bird in the pasture took off like fireworks had gone off. I eased it toward the fence just as her daughter struck a pose with Daisy, my most photogenic cow. She was holding up a peace sign, flashing her best influencer smile. Click, click, click. That's when I slowly raised the manure bucket into the frame, grinning like a movie villain. Click, click, click. Oh, I was in nearly every shot. Me in sunglasses, perched on top of a giant pile of manure, looking like the world's weirdest photobomber. Her daughter didn't even notice until she checked her phone. And when she did, the scream could probably be heard 3 streets over. She bolted straight back to her house, phone clutched to her chest like it was radioactive. Not 10 minutes later, here came Karen, storming across my yard, red-faced and waving her arms like she was landing a plane. "How dare you? You ruined my daughter's photos. I leaned against the loader, wiping grease off my hands. Karen, I thought it was your rule that nobody's supposed to be on other people's property. Guess the rules don't apply when it's your family? That shut her up cold. The neighbors who had gathered to watch. Oh, they were loving every second of it. One even called out, "Hey Karen, maybe add that to the HOA handbook. No cow selfies." The crowd laughed, and for the first time, Karen had no power, no authority, just humiliation. And the cherry on top? A few days later, her daughter posted those very selfies online. Despite Karen's protests, they went mildly viral in our town's Facebook group, manure photobomb and all. The caption? Life on the farm vibes. From that day forward, Karen never said another word about my truck. She still glared, sure, but the cops never came back, and the flyers stopped showing up. Because sometimes the best way to beat an HOA Karen is with a little horsepower, a sense of humor, and a manure loader. Enjoying this wild HOA versus truck showdown? Hit subscribe to catch more unbelievable real-life stories. And give this video a like if Karen's meltdown made you laugh. Drop a comment below. What would you have done if your neighbor tried to call the cops over your truck?